Every new project starts with an idea, which in this case was to build a larger version of the legendary Fleming 55. Such a broad concept has to be followed by months of design and detailed planning, which today include computer renderings of how the completed boat will look. The architect's hull lines are drawn out full size on the loft floor, where they are carefully checked for fairness using wood battens. They are then used for making frames which are placed on a jig with great accuracy. With the hull shape established, the first of several ceremonies is held to promote the success of the project. In the case of fiberglass, work cannot start on an actual boat until plugs and molds for each and every part have been made, which requires months and months of laborious work. At last, the first hull emerges from the hull mold. This is the interior of hull number 1. The engines are loaded at an early stage in the construction process. Building of the first boat is marked by a series of critical milestones. One of these is whether the deck, which is built upside down, will fit the hull. As these parts are built simultaneously, this is by no means a guaranteed result, and the outcome depends entirely on the skill of the builders. The flying bridge deck is also built upside down, and is here shown being turned over while being lifted into position. With the major parts married together, construction can finally get underway on the interior. Another major milestone is when the boat is moved out of the building, for it is only then that it is possible to stand back, walk around it, and be able to judge the result of so many months of labor and decision making. Firecrackers split the air as her hull first touches the water in the test tank. Another milestone is reached as we anxiously wait to find out whether the new boat will float level and to her marks. While in the tank, the boat is gradually brought to life, and the last of the special equipment is loaded aboard. This is the experimental Stirling engine generator. Back on dry land, the final preparations are made to ready her for the long journey which will ultimately take her to the other side of the world. The first step on that journey is a 20-kilometer road trip through the bustling streets of Taiwan. Just after dawn, the new boat arrives at the fishing port in Kaohsiung's busy harbour. Here she is launched again, this time into seawater, and yet another tense milestone is passed, as she runs under her own power for the first time. In these gritty surroundings, her anxious creators finally have the opportunity to see their protégée underway in her natural element. On Christmas Eve 2004, she is brought alongside the ship that will carry her across the Pacific Ocean to California. When her keel lifts off the transporter, she passes the final milestone in Taiwan, and she leaves, forever, the place where the hard work and skills of the people created a thing of beauty from crates of components and piles of raw materials. "21 days later, the ship arrived in San Diego, and with the aid of a floating crane, Venture feels the water under her keel once again. In the light of the setting sun, she gets underway for her first port-to-port trip on her own bottom, and overnight heads up the coast for her berth to the beautiful harbour of Newport Beach. With commissioning complete, Venture set out on an excursion which, although still a trial of sorts, was the first not to be entirely work-related. The turning buoy with its sunbathing seals marks the entrance to Newport Harbour. Our destination, Catalina Island, lies 20 miles offshore, and Avalon, with its landmark casino building and Mediterranean flavour, is its only town. Venture's first cruising season really got underway when she headed down the coast and crossed the international border en route to the port of Ensenada. The gigantic flag flying above the town made it clear that we had now arrived in Mexico. Here, Venture had a rendezvous with a dockwise ship to carry her north to Vancouver, in Canada. The ship is ballasted to flood the center deck, enabling yachts to be driven into the cargo area. Divers position chocks under each boat, and when all the boats are loaded, the water is pumped out so that the deck on which they sit is high and dry. We were accompanied by a new Fleming 55, and the ship was soon crammed with yachts travelling north for the summer. In just 5 short days, she had arrived in Vancouver. With the deck re-flooded, the disembarkation process went smoothly. Before long, Venture was berthed under the shadow of the skyscrapers lining Cole Harbour Marina in downtown Vancouver. We took Venture through the locks and into the Lake Union Canal with its shipyards and moorage for mega yachts and houseboats. In Lake Union itself, Venture had her first public showing in the Seattle Boat Show. We stopped at Port Angeles for fuel top-up and final preparations. The route heads northwest before turning south round exposed Cape Flattery, where, as the sun was setting, Venture encountered the first of the ocean's swells. With throttle set for 11.5 knots, Venture ran as if on rails, surfing down the face of 12-foot waves at speeds of up to 20 knots in the strong following winds. Finally, we headed back to Newport Beach. We passed familiar landmarks, including the Turning Buoy with its seals basking in the sun. The Pavilion, built in 1906. And the dock from which we had departed 5 months and 2,600 miles ago.